PNR with Adam R.
Nice.
Yeah.
Welcome to 3PNR. I'm your host, Adam R. And joining me for this episode is Rick Warner and Joshua Chairs. How you guys doing?
Good.
How are you today?
Good. Glad. Thank you for being on. Glad to have your time. Let's start with this, Rick, because you got a couple hats here. You have the Extraterrestrial Research Center, ERC, which I'll link the website into the description. And then let's talk about the other one now. You have Phantom Detectives.
Yeah. So today I have the director of our paranormal investigation team. His name's Joshua Chairs. He is the director. I happen to be the lead investigator, the tech manager, and the director of client relations. And then we have Melissa Ferrazano, who is our psychic medium. She'll be with us shortly as well. So yeah, there's the three of us together as we all bring our own skills into the team, different things that we do, and we work very well with each other. We all complement each other well. And it's the three of us.
I'd spoken to Melissa about this the first time I'd spoken to her. Fun fact, she has the same last name as a friend of mine from childhood, Anthony Ferrazano.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like when I first spoke to her, I was like, well, are you from Brooklyn? But it's
here she is.
Yeah, it was a rare last name. You almost never hear it. I remember thinking, because when I was a kid, I thought for whatever reason, because there was a Verrazano Bridge in New York, and then the Ferrazano, I always closely associated him with that bridge. I never understood why.
It could be, there could be some, it goes back to some family members or something. Maybe there's some kind of connection, Are you with us, Melissa?
She's still mute. I imagine she's getting set up.
Oh, okay. I heard Josh would say she just came in.
Yeah, between you and Josh, by the way, you guys got a lot going on. A lot of hats between you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Melissa,
You'll definitely say that.
Yeah.
And Joshua has a lot of hats too. I mean, from, because he's got Dark Matter News website, and he has Phantom Detectives website, also our YouTube channel, Phantom Detectives. And for you people listening out there, please come and check out our YouTube channel, and you can watch our amazing videos.
And also possibly the next our owner of Dark Matter Digital Network, I hope.
Yes, that's the one more one. Yeah, that's the.
I'll link all of that in the description. That's a lot. You guys, you are one busy team. Melissa, how you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. I was just talking about that last name of yours, and my friend Anthony is a kid. Same last name.
Yes. How about that? What are the chances of that?
Very, 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 just the most unlikely scenario you can come across.
Yeah.
So let's dive into this. Let's talk about ERC to begin with. Where are you guys at? What do you got? What do you got on the horizon?
Okay, well, right now, so I'm the executive director for ERC, which stands for Extraterrestrial Research Center, and I'm actually a certified UFO investigator. I'm trained by MUFON and went through MUFON University, and I received several certifications that have to do with investigations and, that kind of thing. And I will say the training's, very well, really good training, excellent training. And for various reasons, I decided to go my own way. There were some other people that were going to join, and they kind of, because one person kind of wanted to pan out, and then so the other two kind of followed suit. And I thought, I'm one of those people that if I say I'm going to make something happen, I'm going to get something done, I get it done. I'm a very driven person, and I like to make things happen. And so that's what I did, baby. I made it happen. I got the website, hundreds and hundreds of man hours put together on the ERC website. And I just want to put it out there so people can go on the ERC website, and they can, go there to watch videos that are based on, extraterrestrial type events. There's also a UFO glossary. You can learn about the different kinds of terms. You can read about some of the latest research that's going on. You could also read about featured cases that I put on there. And I should mention that, I don't want to, we also investigate cases, but we only take the best of the best, because unlike MUFON, we don't have a team of over 1,000 investigators to go and investigate all these cases. We're not even there at that point. I mean, MUFON's been around for forever.
Well, it's needed. So here's an example. There's a lot of detectives that work for police departments, a lot of them. But when you want to specialize, let's say your spouse is cheating or someone's missing, you call a private investigator because they can focus intently on that case. So
that's right.
Yeah, it's needed to be that way. And it's good for people to branch off and start other things, because you don't want everything to come from one source. Otherwise, it wouldn't be information.
I honestly believe that a good investigator who investigates extraterrestrial sightings or events would make a great detective.
Oh, in a heartbeat. Listen, more and more. Chris DiPerno is a MUFON director, field investigator. He's a former homicide detective, and more detectives and cops are getting involved with ufology, mostly because in 2017, those videos from our government, which really sold me, involved. Yeah. Now you have a lot of inquisitive minds that they investigate in real life. These are the best of the best. They're going to go look.
Here's the thing, because when somebody reports a sighting, like let's say with MUFON, for an example, okay, they will want you to follow up. Let's say somebody saw something. There was a couple of witnesses, maybe a boyfriend and girlfriend. They thought he saw an extraterrestrial craft outside in the night sky. And so the next thing, you try to research, were there any other reports of sightings that were in that area? You check the database and see what you could find. You interview the witnesses, because if they say something like, I was hanging out with my friends and we were, getting drunk and smoking weed and stuff, you might question what it was they saw. Like, you think you saw something, but was it because you were so drunk and stoned? Right. You didn't know what you were seeing. So, we ask a lot of questions because we want to get as much accurate information, but we're also, trying to find out, does this witness have any kind of credibility? Or does it sound like this is somebody who's just blowing smoke up my ass? Okay. So you want to make sure, you're trying to fish out as much knowledge as you can and get to the facts.
Well, yeah, it's a rule out phase. You want to go through the process.
But sometimes what happens is like, you'll get somebody that will say, they'll be like in one side of the state, let's say, for an example, okay, because we're out here in Delaware, which is also, we're in the we call the tri-state area, because we're close to South New Jersey, and then we're also close to Maryland as well. So they might be like on the border somewhere, seeing the same thing you're seeing, and then report something. So somebody from Pennsylvania might say, hey, I saw a sighting, and somebody who's on the border of that's in,
right,
in Delaware, kind of saw the same thing. But
well, yeah, you have to have a process of elimination. One thing about MUFON I've learned, they have a good chain of custody. So when it's almost like you would have in law enforcement, as they come across evidence, it stays amongst colleagues, and they document well. So when it gets to the top, same as you would in law enforcement, it gets to the top. Now they know there's a chain of custody there. It hasn't been tainted on the way up.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, because look, I mean, a lot of the cases that you get, well, they'll use the Jacques Vallée classification system rather than the Hynek classification system, which is just a little, it's just better and a little bit more descriptive and broken down. But so they'll classify into category 1, category 2, category 3 kind of thing. So let's say somebody says, well, I was looking in the back of my farm, it was late at night, and it looked like there was an alien being, and there's some kind of footprints on the ground. So a class 3 case like that, they got to jump on like on that case within like 24 hours.
Right.
And go out there. And at that point, you might be, checking for radiation. You might be taking soil samples. You might be taking vegetation samples, from plant matter, looking to see, is there any sign of any kind of fuel or anything like that. So the first thing you want to do is measure for radiation, because if there's radiation out there, you go in a class 3 case on the land, boom, that stops right there. Because there's no way you should be investigating any case like that has high levels of radiation. That's when you say, okay, you turn it back and say, hey, I can't check this case out because, right now you're showing high levels of radiation and that sort of thing.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, like, look, 85% of what's seen out there can be said that is either a man-made object or natural phenomenon. So the other 20%, or 25%, somewhere in there, the stuff that's, you just don't know what it is. It's something, and you can't explain it. It's not a weather phenomenon. It's not a planet. It's not a star, and it's not a man-made object. So what does that leave? It's an unidentified UAP. So when you have all these things, not just throughout the United States, but all over the world, then there's really something to this stuff.
Right. And there's a lot of people that say, oh, it could be American stuff, or it could be our enemies. Listen, here's the facts. This is the fact. If we had it in a time like with that kind of technology, that's leapfrogging decades of stuff, maybe even a millennia of technology. We're not hiding that. That is the, what are you going to do about it? Technology. There's nothing you can do about it. If it was our enemies, in a heartbeat, do you think for a second Russia would suppress that kind of technology, especially now? No way. Be all over the place.
Well, here's the thing. Let's face it, but what is the government good at doing? They're good at hiding the truth.
Right.
They're good at cover-ups, right?
Well, before you go there, Rick, here's the big part of our government. Our government, let's picture them as the big tough guy at school, right? When our government has something that's out there that they can't explain, it exceeds our technology. The cover-up's not so much as to like say, oh, we're being secretive, as is they don't want to admit that they're weaker than what it is we're viewing.
That's right.
They can lose a little control on that, right? So, and I hate to say this, but there's people in our world that if you tell them that there's something that lives outside of here and God didn't make it, they're going to come unglued.
Yeah.
So
and here's the thing: when you get U.S. pilots up in the sky, like they were out by the San Diego area in California, there, and they're spotting this tic-tac shaped object and this thing that's darting all over in the radar, and they say, well, and when they clock it and figure out how fast this thing must have been going, where they're going at like, a fighter jet flying at, what is it, like Mach 3, maybe like, 3,000 miles an hour faster, 3,500 miles an hour. And this thing, they said, it must be going like, 15,000 miles an hour or something crazy. And they say, well, we don't have anything like that. Okay, so there's a good chance if you hear that coming from these pilots saying we don't have anything like that, wouldn't most of them know, like, if, about the technology that's out there, and if they are having something? Yeah,
current technology. As far as
current technology. As far as
there's
no heat signature.
There's pilots that work on black projects that, that information is not privy to every fighter pilot, but for our military to have something to perform that way, we have leapfrogged an insane amount of technology in a small amount of time. I'm not discrediting humanity. We are pretty amazing. Yes. Look at the iPhone, right? For crying out loud. But the point I make is that's a big leap. It's enormous. And there's people that try to debunk these things. That's the one thing. The 2017 military videos really re-engaged me with this subject. And to hear debunkers try to debunk it, it's insulting to these pilots that serve our country, that they put their lives on the line to protect us. And they're trained observers. They're the best of the best for observation. You're not flying $20 and $40 million planes around because the government's like, well, he's okay. He's not just okay. He's trained to be the best. These are Top Gun pilots. These aren't like this isn't, and I'm not discrediting airline pilots either, but these are guys that they fly around and their job is solely to identify threats, period.
That's right. And they're very credible. So that's what you would call a very credible witness compared to like some guy who was, sitting out in his backyard with their buddies getting drunk and smoking weed.
Right. Well, before we move too fast here, let's get Josh. Let's talk about Joshua. Joshua, tell us about your background and what got you to this point.
Sure. So my background in the paranormal actually began in 1987 when I was a 3-year-old child. I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries, much like every kid during that time period. And during that time period, watching Unsolved Mysteries, I watched this episode called The General Wayne Inn. It's called the Inn of the 17 Ghosts. It's right outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in a place called Marion Station, Pennsylvania. And basically there, I saw this episode, and it was really fascinating, all the reported haunted paranormal activity there. And then in 2002, I met a parapsychologist by the name of Micheline Mayer. She did a quantitative analysis of the inn in 2000 before she passed away. And she was one of my mentors in the field. I had the opportunity to investigate the inn before it was converted to a Jewish synagogue in 2004. So during that time period, I actually got to investigate with the local Philadelphia team and went down to the basement area. And during that time, of course, ghost hunting equipment was not very sophisticated as it is today, but I was able to take a digital camera and start taking pictures down in the basement area where people reported seeing a Hessian soldier from the Revolutionary War. So during that time period, I went ahead and actually took 3 straight photos and actually picked up weird green and yellow streaks of light. And then after getting those green and yellow streaks of light, I started getting interest in basically watching ghost hunters. And when I came out in 2004, and that was really big. And Jason and Grant. And then after watching Ghost Adventures, and then in 2014, I actually co-founded the Summerwind Restoration Society along with my colleague Craig Nearing. He runs a team called Fox Valley Ghost Hunters up in northern Wisconsin. And basically there, I watched an episode called The Haunting of Summerwind. And basically it was on a Travel Channel at that time. And Summerwind basically has a really fascinating history. I'll give you. It actually was built in 1914 by a person named John Frank who lived in Akron, Ohio. And then it was originally called West Bay Lake Fishing Lodge at that time. You could fish out on the thing for $4.99 a night and stay there. And then in 1916, he had employed Chicago architects Talmadge Tomas and Vernon Watson to convert this mansion into a actual mansion. So then the servants in the 1920s told him it was haunted, and Mr. Lamont, who was a U.S. Secretary of Commerce under President Herbert Hoover, basically was sitting with his wife one day in the kitchen area, and then the basement door flew open, revealing the ghostly form of a man, and they fired 2 shots at the man inside in the basement door, and basically thus missing the ghost and never returned. And then when Mr. Lamont died in 1948, a lady named Lillian Kiefer bought it. And then, of course, over the next 20 years, the property reverted to numerous owners. And then when the Hinshaw family moved in 1969, they had to have it. It was the ultimate fixer-upper. A guy named Arnold Hinshaw purchased it, and then his wife Ginger lived there with their 6 kids. And basically, the Hinshaws reported flickering shadows, dark, silhouettes of figures. They had to nail the windows shut because basically they actually flew open on their own. There was also workers would come to the mansion and basically tools would disappear. And so basically stuff would happen more and more. And there's also reports that the car caught on fire during this time. So basically all these reports that were coming, and then the stepfather lost his mind and then started playing the organ to all hours of the night. The family got so terrified that they had to stay in one room inside the mansion. And then basically after a while, basically Ginger tried committing suicide, according to the book, The Carver Effect, A Paranormal Experience, written by Wolfgang von Bober in 1979. And then, of course, the father was committed to a sane asylum up in Canada, never heard from again. And then when Raymond von Bober Sr. actually had it, basically, he was a popcorn maker from Chicago. He was Ginger's father. He had to have the place. And then basically, Ginger pleaded with her father not to buy it. And then basically, of course, he bought it and he tried to make a go at it again. But unfortunately, he ran into the similar problems that the Henshaws did. He actually basically tried to get workers to come. The tools would disappear again. And there's also a report that the mansion actually changed shape from the blueprints. It's a story that was in the Carver effect. And then, of course, when they pulled out the blueprints and used a tape measure for the measure the lengths and basically the width, the mansion would shape change. And then Lillian Kiefer, basically Raymond von Bober Sr. gave the mansion back to Lillian Kiefer. Then Miss Kiefer died in 1985. And then, of course, in 1986, my friend Craig Nearing, basically the current owners bought the property as a wedding anniversary present for his wife, Harold and Babs Tracy, who are a couple up in La Crosse, Wisconsin. And basically, one of the most fascinating ghost stories that they have is before the place burnt down, is they actually reported that the mansion was actually inhaling, like it was almost taking on a life of its own. They walked up to the driveway one night, and the mansion appeared to be like kind of breathing. And then, unfortunately, on Father's Day of 1988, the place burnt down, and all that remains today is the two tall chimneys, the foundation, and the steps. And after I watched this episode, I actually purchased the original blueprints to the property from Raymond von Bober Jr., Wolfgang von Bober Sr.'s son, and basically then I contacted Craig, and we founded the Summerwind Restoration Society in order to restore, rebuild, and relaunch Summerwind as a haunted bed and breakfast. And I got involved working with that project, and basically now, over the last 7 years of the project, the place is still not rebuilt, but we got to a point where there are documentaries and networks interested in airing an updated version of the Summerwind story, so people can now go out and basically view that on their own. And then in 2015, I called into a radio show one day from my friend who hosts a radio show out in California. At the time, he was Art Bell's producer on Midnight in the Desert. So I was trying to book Craig and Kevin on one of his shows, and he hosts a show out in California and works with the world's largest UFO channel, Third Phase of the Moon. And then him and I started becoming friends. And then basically, I started working with Heather Wade and John Ilias, who were Art Bell staff members in 2015, 2016. And, Art unfortunately passed away in 2018, basically under mysterious circumstances. And then, of course, in 2020, I decided to form the Phantom Detectives to help people that were going through paranormal experiences, because I thought with a lot of the teams that were going around, there was a lot of the teams were dying out, and older teams were starting to basically break apart. So I wanted to get a fresh start from my old team that I had found. So I thought it wasn't progressing the way that it could. So basically, I brought my previous lead investigator from my old team over to my new team. And then basically we started doing investigations under the new banners. I had a website built, business cards, social media pages, the logos designed. And we started doing investigations on the new banner on December 9th, 2020 at the Sanderson Museum in Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania.
You're invested into that. That's a big investment. And I could see how it's definitely charmed you. It's got me intrigued. I don't know very much about that location, but I'm interested now. Can anyone go there? Can anyone go there and record or investigate?
Oh, absolutely. Summerwind is currently the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters. They've been around for almost 13 years now, since 2009. And I used a lot of my the blueprints, like the website look, the designs, the layout, from the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters website. Craig and I go way back, and actually they do public investigations on the property and campouts, and all the proceeds that actually are raised goes towards the Summerwind Restoration Society. And the Craig has permission from the Tracys to investigate the ruins, and it's still very active today. Like the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters have reported with rocks throwing out of the foundation. They used to take one of their team members and basically, have her sit in isolation in a chair, and she with her EVP recorder, and basically then a raccoon all of a sudden flies out of a tree and lands on her lap, and basically she reports, and she plays back the voice recorder saying, pushed that raccoon from the voice on the EVP. So it's very active today. And, the place is got a lot of history to it. It dates back to like the early 1900s.
I say this a lot, by the way. Perception has a lot to do with it. See, I said this in another this is my opinion anyway. If you're at a place and it's dark and dingy and you think it's like, to you, it's scary looking, on the other side of the realm where they exist, perhaps that place is still standing and beautiful. Perhaps we're the ones that's haunting them. We're encroaching on their personal space. And so I think that a lot, because a lot of the cases I listen to, I hear the same kind of scenario where it's almost like an unwelcoming. It's almost like you walked into their house, like, what are you doing in my house, man? That's at least that's what I get from it. Josh, I'll tell you, and Rick knows this, and Melissa knows this. I've never witnessed anything ever. I'm going to be in the field eventually. I think there's two parts there. One, maybe they don't like me, or two, I don't have the software. Again, it's perception.
Oh, absolutely. Because perception is your process of receiving information and making sense of it all. And, with us, basically, especially with doing investigations, we use a lot of sophisticated and high-tech gadgetry, from EMF meters to voice recorders to, ghost boxes, portal boxes to DVR security cameras to, ovuluses, which pick up words and responses, to paranormal.
We have over 100
environmental data.
Of equipment.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot. Between Rick and I are kind of like the tech guys. We're all about gadgetry.
Yeah, we make jokes about, like, when other people are addicted to drugs and alcohol, we're addicted to paranormal equipment, okay? We're like, when you hear about girls can never have too many purses,
right?
We cannot have too much paranormal equipment.
Yeah, there's a guy I'd spoken to, David Olson. He's a cop in Chicago, and he's a paranormal investigator. And his investment, he has it's a retired ambulance that's been modified. I call it the Ecto 2. It's remarkable. A movie.
God, I'd love to see that.
I got pictures. So if you look at the first episode I did with him, I have the pictures of it on the podcast itself, like on the background. But
okay.
It's remarkable. He's got this ambulance. It's inside of his a technological dream. You guys should really connect with that guy. I'm going to connect you guys with that guy.
Ghostbusters, man.
In a heartbeat. And then he has a trailer attached to that with more equipment.
Wow.
That guy.
That is so cool.
Where's he from?
And
Chicago.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you now, this is what I like hearing from people like you and him and Josh. When I hear people are invested that way, you're not out there for a gag or for a like on YouTube. You're out there trying to find facts because you're invested. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's like for when I'm doing a podcast. If I just want to get a microphone and a little okey doke interface because I want to get some likes or whatever, I haven't even advertised this podcast yet. I'm not going to do it till probably later on in September. It's word of mouth. I'm not doing this to make money. I'm doing this because I want to talk to people and find answers. I didn't invest this kind of money in this equipment just to, shoot the shit with somebody.
Yeah.
But much like Art Bell, he was pretty much the first real broadcaster that talked about this stuff on the radio. And one time, Art had between 18 to 20 million listeners, a night on 500 affiliate stations, and kind of spellbound, just amazing. And we were actually able on May 21st, 2021, to buy a part of his legacy and actually, his affiliate director's news service and rebrand it under our leadership. That was quite amazing.
That's crazy numbers.
Came out and said, hey, I don't want
numbers.
Yes.
I got to tell you, so here's the other big thing too. Let me start with this. Joshua, in the field, what have you witnessed paranormal like yourself?
Oh my gosh, a lot. I've been on so many different investigations over the last 4 years. Besides doing on a previous team, I actually went to the place called Pennhurst. Pennhurst is up in Spring City, Pennsylvania. It opened in 1908, closed in 1907. It's some of the first buildings for the girls' dining room, the Rockwood, basically Rockwell, Mayflower, and Limerick. And then, basically we were in the Philadelphia building, my previous lead investigator and I, and on this old team. And basically there, we actually were using something called a thermal camera. And a thermal camera picks up hot and cold signatures and displays them on this screen. And there, basically, we were at the end of Philadelphia building at the bottom of the tunnels, and basically we saw a rusted out iron door. So we used our thermal camera and took a couple of pictures, and we started seeing these cold feet on this rusted out iron door, and there was no reflective surfaces. There was nobody else around but us two. So I pointed and zapped it and took a picture of it. So that was one paranormal thing. And then when we went to the Mayflower building, we started hearing like all kinds of strange, like we started hearing like laughter of children and other noises and on the floor. And we were the only ones on that floor that night because it was a private investigation. And also Grant Wilson from Ghost Hunters was also there that night. So he gave us some tutorials on how to hold the Sls camera, how to, do some basic things. And that was one paranormal experience. And then when we did our first investigation as a team, basically we went to the Sanderson Museum in the violin room, which is one of the most active rooms of the museum. Basically, we actually, our EMF fatigue detectors were going off on top of our basically voice recorder was going off on top of our security camera was going off. And we also captured a really, really defined orb in the museum. And the museum is pretty amazing because it's got so much activity, and basically it dates back to the 1940s. And basically the Christian Sanderson's mother Hannah died there. He was a museum. He was a poet. He was a radio show host. He was a violin musician. He hosted square dances. Very well known person. And then when we went to another paranormal experience, which is the second investigation, we went to the mill of Aunt Selma. This actually mill was founded by Samuel Lightfoot in 1747, and basically famous. Oliver Collins was the final mill there. It's a national historic landmark, and it's the oldest surviving mill. The night that we were there, the door, the actual door of the entire thing flew open by itself, and we have that on our YouTube channel, Phantom Detectives LLC. So the door flew open by itself. It was bolted shut. We're the only ones on the property. And then basically 2 hours later, we're out doing EVPs by myself. And you can hear this EVP that says go, which is right on our website, phantomdetectives.org. Then, of course, we went to the Betsy Ross house, where the nation's first flag was sown in 1776 when George Washington was there. Rick and Sasha were down in the basement area, and there they were actually using their voice recorders, and they captured some growls that were defied earthly. And then, of course, their paralight was going off, Rick's scare bear was going off, and then I had stuff going up in in Betsy's room, where basically I captured a thermal image of her, and then, of course, we actually captured an EVP that says, "I've been there too." So that location was pretty amazing. So we've had a lot of paranormal experiences on the team and solo investigators.
Hey, Joshua, I just got to interrupt you for a second. Okay, let's not forget this, and I gotta tell Adam about this, because this was one of the most craziest things I ever seen. So when we were in the what was that museum again that we were in with Melissa?
Sanderson Museum.
Sanderson. Okay. Sanderson. Yeah. So what happens is so Sasha, who was with us at the time, Sasha and Joshua were both upstairs. And Melissa and I were upstairs. So Melissa and I decided to go downstairs, and I can't remember what we were going to do, but we were going to go downstairs and check up on something. And we go downstairs, right? And so basically all our belongings, jackets, the backpacks they had, everything was piled at the bottom of the stairs. And I'm thinking, I was thinking maybe Joshua did it, or, Sasha did it. So we had asked them, hey, did one of you guys put your equipment here? And they said no. And they hadn't come downstairs anyway. So then we thought, you know what? Because Sasha's parents were there earlier. They kind of opened up the place for us and all that. And I'm thinking maybe one of them was there. And they were there earlier, but they never came back. So Melissa and I were, looking around to see if there was anybody there. Like, hello, is anybody here? We didn't hear any response. We looked around with a flashlight. There was nobody around. It was like pitch black. And we walked down, and the whole bottom of the steps was filled with our personal belongings and, Joshua's backpack and things with stuff in there. In other words, it's like it wanted to keep us there. It wanted to make us trip. So I go back. So Melissa and I were like blown away. So we go back upstairs, and I'm thinking maybe it's a practical joke. Did one of you guys try to pull a joke on us? Well, no, it wasn't any one of us. and we were asking questions with the dowsing rods, which the spirits are very good at answering. Like you could say, cross the dowsing rods forward for yes, or back to my shoulders for no. So I started asking questions of the spirit to find out what's going on. And, you know, were you trying to like make one of us trip? And the spirit had answered like, no. Okay. So were you just like basically disagreeing with us because you thought it was funny, and it crossed over basically as yes? So it was like whatever spirit was there was very mischievous. But the fact that no one else was there, no other explanation. How did all those items get blocked down at the bottom of the stairs? No intruders.
Right.
I mean, it was nuts.
And let me say also another thing. It's right after that, like during Phantom time, we all kind of split up and captured EVPs. So I started asking questions into the voice recorder, and I asked one of the questions. This was during National Ghost Hunting Day. So this was after the cameras went off for National Ghost Hunting Day, which is the world's largest ghost hunt. We actually got syndicated on multiple platforms, thousands of people watching worldwide. And basically, during National Ghost Hunt Day, we asked the question, do you want to move our equipment bags and block us from leaving? And you can hear clear a response of a female saying, be afraid. So it's almost like they wanted to keep us inside that museum and not leave that at all that night.
Yes. It's either that, or it could have been that, or it was just a mischievous spirit just trying to screw with our heads, you know. Sometimes some of these spirits, you know, when they were born, they were like pranksters, and now they're passed away, they're pranksters.
A couple things to add to that. One, when I cross over, I feel bad for everyone. I'm a jerk. I'm going to mess with people. It's what I do, right? Thing two, Joshua, what I like about him, he doesn't just go to a place to investigate. He does the homework on every detail, like historically. That's the first I've come across that. I mean, he just spilled perfect details out. I mean,
well, you know what's amazing is, and I've told him this before, he has an uncanny memory to persons' first names, last name, dates. I mean, I'll forget dates,
historical
things
stuff
like that. Man. Like I'll remember certain specific details, but when it comes to names and dates, I'll admit I'm not the best person.
So let me ask this. Let's go here, Melissa.
Yes.
You're out with the boys. These guys have high energy. I mean, he could tell you details about a place that I don't even think the grounds owners would know. So you're there. You're psychic. You have the software. You have the receptors. Mm-hmm. Is it exhausting when you're on these jobs?
No, actually, it's pretty fascinating. Now, that being said, yes, it can zap my energy, but usually after the fact. When I go into these investigations, I will encounter various spirits. And what's interesting is I get their personalities like right away. And I will pick up on, are they happy to see us? Are they not happy to see us? I mean, these were once living, breathing people. So, you know, sometimes you might get someone that truly does not want you there. You know, you're in my space and you're not welcome. And other, you know, spirits will be just so happy to welcome you. And but sometimes the energy is pretty intense, especially if there is a lot of spirits in one location. So it may not necessarily exhaust me, but it might hit me like a tidal wave. It'll just take the wind out of me. And there have been times, especially during our investigation at the Selma Mansion, where I opened the door and, like I said, the energy hit me like a tidal wave. I literally had to close the door, step outside, reground, and regroup before I could go back in there. Because a lot of times when there's a lot of spirits in one location, you know, you're tuning into so much energy, you're picking up on so much information. So, and it's exciting. It's very exciting to see if what I'm tuning into can be verified according to Joshua's information. Because like you said, he's done his research. He knows the history. He knows all about the place. So I go into these investigations blindly, and whatever I tune into, what's pretty cool is we can find out if it's accurate according to what Joshua knows about the place, and also with our equipment. Because if I'm tuning into the spirit of a woman, like there's been times we've investigated, there was one particular apartment we went into, and right away I encountered an angry woman, and I just picked up on that she did not want us there. We were invading her space, and how dare we come in there? And so later on, we were doing a ghost box session where it's like an AM/FM sweep, and we heard a woman basically spouting out profanities on there. So
potty mouth.
Yes, we were calling her the potty mouth spirit. So it was interesting. I was tuning into this angry woman, and then a little while later, we were hearing a woman's voice telling us basically what she thought of us. So, yeah.
She said, "Go F off." Is what she
exactly.
said. Yeah.
But you know what? Later on, when you're asking me if I'm exhausted, the very next day, yes, the very next day, I feel pretty drained. No matter what I do to try to protect myself and not allow that to happen, the very next day, I feel like I can't get enough sleep. It's a very exhausting day because spirits will drain us just like they'll drain the batteries in our equipment. So it takes me a full day to recover from an investigation. That's usually how it works.
Well, yeah.
Remember we were sick for 3 days on that apartment that you talked about? And look at the guy there that we investigated his place. Remember how he looked so drained and sick? And we all felt under the weather for like 3 days. Remember that?
I do. Absolutely. And that poor guy who was in the apartment, now he has since moved out because the energy was just so intense in there. And it was just draining him and causing him so many issues. And he wouldn't even sleep in his own bedroom. That's how intense that energy was. So, yes, I remember Rick. I mean, he looked exhausted. He looked like he was at his wit's end. And
exactly.
Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. Your brain is a computer, the most complex on the planet.
And let me say also another thing that was interesting is during that time, basically this client actually had markings on his legs. He had his sheets pulled off his couch. He actually captured a lot of extraterrestrial spirits. We actually captured basically Rick actually was using the dowsing rods, and actually we got a 19-year-old that basically died on the property, and there was also a potty mouth spirit of an older woman and her daughter. And what's interesting was we also captured the EVP. We're doing Phantom Time, which we asked questions into our voice recorder, and we actually captured we actually said, is there anybody here? Is there older woman here? And basically the response we got was right here, like kind of a whisper, but you can hear something saying right here, saying, I'm here. He let you know of their presence. And that was a really
and I think it was like a 17-year-old boy that committed suicide. And, from what we were picking up, he was having problems. But remember, when we started asking questions, trying to determine, like we'll ask the dowsing rods, is there more than one spirit here? Is there... And it says, yes, okay, are there more than 3? We came up that there wasn't it like 8 spirits that we were to establish that were in that house, and some were not angry. And like Melissa was saying about that angry lady, and you might be able to answer this, Melissa, was the lady that you picked up that was angry, was she the mother of that 17-year-old boy that committed suicide there?
I do feel that she was. I did feel a connection between the two of them. So that's why I'm wondering if she feels like we were invading her space. I feel that there was a lot of trauma in that location. And what's interesting is when we were in the bedroom that had the most activity, that is the time I remember feeling horribly sick in there. And I believe that I picked up on that the suicide took place. So I do feel like that most likely, yes, that was the mother. And I just feel like, they were prior, not homeowners, but, they were prior tenants. And there must have just been so much just bad that happened in that location. And so.
A couple things here. Here's what I'm gathering. One, for Melissa, again, the human brain, it's a computer, most complex we have on the planet. I think if you put too much data to any computer, you're going to overwhelm the computer. It could overload, it could shut down. 2, the big factor is when we cross to whatever we cross, when we pass away, whether it be we go to another frequency or realm, when you're walking around these places and you're getting spirits that are probably having a little pushback about you being there, like Melissa said, it's an invasion of their personal space, and they don't know. Their perception, in other words, we can't perceive them as, Rick and I look at each other, where they can't perceive us the same way. It's kind of like on the same side of things. And when they're touching you, or anything for that matter, they would have to manipulate energy. And I say this a lot. If they're manipulating energy to touch you, whether it be a pleasant one or a non-pleasant, it's not going to feel good in either way. They're manipulating energy to do this.
Oh, absolutely. Especially because there's a law of energy, basically states that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, but transferred from one form to another. So basically, a lot of these spirits are made of electromagnetic, static electricity energy. So basically, they move from one form to the next. So sometimes they can manifest themselves as orbs. Sometimes they can manifest themselves as a mist or a smoke. Sometimes they can manifest themselves as a partial or full body apparition. It's all kind of different based on the locations that you go to, and also they're going to pick and choose what kind of pieces of equipment that they actually want to use. Like sometimes we've taken certain apparatuses at other locations where it doesn't work at all. All of a sudden we go take it to another location and it goes off like crazy.
Yeah.
And sometimes even the most simplest piece of equipment, like a little $4 hamster ball, that a lighted hamster ball is more effective than a $300 piece of equipment.
Yeah, I mean,
like those colored balls that light up, and basically you turn them on, but if you touch these things, they go off. It was like that one investigation we did at the house that, the couple there reported a lot of haunted activity, and this little girl's room was like a really hot spot. And remember, we had the scare bear there, which basically is a teddy bear with LED lights placed on different parts of the body. And so, it has a speaker built in. So this thing starts beeping. If you turn it on, runs on a 9-volt battery. And the way you set it off is either you touch it to set it off, it picks up on your energy and it sets it off. That's
Scare Bear. Hold on.
Or if a spirit touches it, it sets it off. And that thing was going off like crazy.
That's Scare Bear. That's to appeal to like a childlike spirit, right?
Yes.
Oh,
well,
absolutely.
yeah. It can.
Makes sense.
But also, it's also not only that, but it's if a spirit chooses, if they have an interest in that item and they think, I really like this bear, and they want to. It's like a kid who has a whole box of toys,
right? But
they don't want to play with these toys; they want to play with those toys,
right? Yeah, I mean, because you're not going to put a teddy bear out there for an adult, right? They're going to be, what's this guy doing? Right? Was he crazy?
Well, that's you might think that, but then think about how many people that are adults that collect like little teddy bears. And dresses.
For sentimental reasons, it makes sense. I mean, here's another fact too. With these spirits, that like how Josh was depicting them, like some of them are orbs, some of them are mist. Bear in mind that not like maybe they have to learn how to manipulate energy. They're not there yet. Like some of them only know I could only move this, or I could only maybe materialize a little bit. They're not educated to the point of how much they could cross over to this realm.
That's a good theory of yours because it kind of answers the question: why are some spirits able to set off EMF meters and REM pods and talk through digital recorders, but yet they cannot form themselves as a apparition?
There's a movie, Ghost. What are we talking about? Ghost from the 90s, whatever. And the guy's in his, he's in the
to me more.
Yeah, and he's teaching a guy on the train how to
Goldberg.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
And he's teaching the guy in the train how to move stuff. Remember? So like not every spirit, and I get that's a movie, but that should apply to real world, because if I pass tomorrow and I want to stay here because I'm not going to the next place, I want to be a jerk. I want to go. Let's say they want to go to my aunt's house and I want to knock shit over. I'm not going to know how to do it yet. I have to learn. I have to get to that point. All right, I lack the knowledge how to do it.
That's hilarious. In other words, you want to make a pit stop to some of the relatives and friends that pissed you off when you were alive.
Oh, not even piss me off, just for the funsies. Like I hang out at pool halls, right? I would definitely haunt pool halls. Why not?
Oh, wait, who just made that 8-ball in the corner pocket?
Yeah, like they rack the balls, I push them apart. Like, what the hell's going on here?
And let me say, there's on our website, phantomdetectives.org, under articles, we have a clear classification of 4 kinds of hauntings, which is basically intelligent hauntings, which exactly you guys mentioned, things that interact with you. There's also residual haunting, which is like a tape recorder, like a past event that's playing itself over and over. Like in Gettysburg, there's a lot of residual energy. There's a poltergeist haunting, which is like a noisy ghost that throws things around and basically move stuff in the environment. Example of that I can think of is the Bothell Hell House with my friend Keith Linder. You ought to get him on. He'd be quite an amazing story. I'll hook you up with his contact information. And then there's also Inhuman Spirits, which are like negative things that attach themselves and prey on the living. So, we haven't dealt with any of those cases yet, and hopefully we won't. But, it's very important to know all that kind of stuff when you're going on investigations. That way you can be prepared.
Josh, listen, man. Listen.
And then you also have the malevolent spirits, the ones that are angry,
right?
That basically, in real life they're an asshole,
right?
Okay?
And as they are here is as you are there.
Asshole as a ghost too. It just carried over.
I got to point out something real quick, Josh. Again, man, like that was really good. Poltergeist is German for noisy ghost. Not a lot of people know that. That's
something, because I've listened to so many, I've been on some radio shows and also been done so many like cases. I've studied a lot of different kind of poltergeist phenomena in many books with Dr. Barry Taff, who basically is one of my mentors in the field. He actually was one of the inspirations behind The Exorcist. So, I've worked with a lot of colleagues and, done a lot of investigations with them over the years with Dave Giuliano. So, it's good to know, like, people out there that teach you like different kinds of cases and, how to
the history too. It's important.
Cases and apply them. Oh, yeah. Like, especially I really credit Dr. Hans Holzer, who's our major inspiration for our team. He was kind of America's first ghost hunter with his daughter, Alexandria. When they reopened the Holzer files in 2019, 2020, Melissa's mentor is Cindy Kaza. And Melissa took classes with her over the last couple of months and has been getting better and better with every investigation. And we also have, Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, the psychic explorer, spiritualist. He's fantastic as well. He's kind of like our Jeff Bellinger. He texts me locations, works behind the scenes for us. So it's good to know that, Dr. Holzer, especially, when Dave Schrader, Cindy Kaza, and Shane Pittman reopened the cases, these cases were 50, 60 years old, and they captured some amazing evidence, on the show. And hopefully someday season 3 will be back. And, Hans Holzer was really kind of the pioneer of American ghost hunting. He would go out and do things that nobody ever did at the time,
When I get in the field,
nice
hold on, Rick,
evidence.
Rick, I gotta
go ahead. Yeah.
Hold on,
go ahead, man.
The diversity of your group, it's got me in this weird. So eventually, when I get out and do the documentary, I now know I have to team with you guys for at least a solid 3 months. It's not a quick stop, because the amount of information Josh has. You have Melissa, who's your psychic, who's very. When I spoke to Melissa now, and even in the first podcast, she's very level. There's a no nonsense approach to her. She's very peaceful, and she's got other insight other than just psychic, right? She's also, you could tell she's got a very logical mind as well, right? She's got an intelligence maneuver. It's not just a receptor and I don't know what's talking to me. She's intelligent. So it's a good combination. And you got Rick. I don't know how many hats you have on, but a lot. So I'm going to have to get into the field and do the doc with you guys. I'm going to have to make my stop with you guys a long one. It seems that way, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And Melissa, especially, not only is she good at basically, being an advanced psychic medium, but also she's trained in remote viewing. She's also got, training in Reiki. I mean, she is a Swiss Army knife of many different hats, and she's so talented and gifted. And Cindy Kaza herself, her mentor, recommended. I found out that she was Melissa lived in my area, so I invited her to join Phantom Detectives and join the family, and she has done a fantastic job. And I couldn't ask for a better person and a better friend. And Melissa has so many gifts, as does Rick, and we all get along so well. We're like family. We all have each other's backs, and we all work together as a unit.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's really the thing too, because when we go into investigation, I mean, it is like a family, and, there's no, whiners and complainers unless somebody like maybe really does something stupid to maybe like irritate us. But But other than that, I mean, we go in, I mean, if it's hot, cold, whatever, we deal with it. Don't complain about, every little thing. But so it's pretty much drama free as far as investigations go. But I want to say this, as I started to mention before, I didn't mean to cut you off, but when we go and investigate, every investigation that we have been on as a team, we've always captured paranormal evidence when other paranormal investigators are not capturing stuff. And what I attribute it to is it's the way we approach our investigations. Okay, we go into the investigation respecting the spirits that it's their place, not ours. And we come in there humbly as your guest. Thank you for allowing us to be in your home today. We don't mean you any harm. If it's okay, we'd like to ask you a few questions. If that's all right, we'd appreciate any answer you give us. We come in very kind, very respectful, and we find out you get more results with a little bit of honey than you do when you come in and you demand, like, and you see like, the guy on Zach Bagans on Ghost Adventures. I know a lot of it is for show, so I understand when they do what they do.
Right.
But he's like, okay, well, I understand that you like to push people down the stairs. Okay, come on. How about you do that to me?
Yeah.
How about come on, have a piece of me. Let's go at it. But we don't really do that kind of thing. I mean, we're very careful about how we come in, and we don't demand that they give us answers. We don't demand that they set up our equipment. We don't challenge them. We respect them.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, like I saw these shows that are pulling their shirts off. Like, all right, buddy, let's do this. I'm like, what do you? It's a ghost. What do you think you're gonna do?
Yeah, throw me downstairs, pal. Let's see you try that.
To people that do that, let me make you aware of what I am. If I'm a ghost and you make threatening gestures to me, I'm gonna sit in your house and sing the same song over and over and over until you lose your mind.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the physical stuff. You're gonna hear nonsense for hours on end.
That's hilarious.
Melissa, moving forward for you, girl, especially as a psychic medium, and you as well, a lot of hats. And to say this too, to have the software she has, because I think every human being has the same hardware. It just really comes down to what downloads you have as far as software and receptors, right? Now, for you, Melissa, what does it turn off, or how does it turn off?
Well, I actually had to learn how to, let's put it this way. I don't think you can ever turn it off. It's always there. But I had to basically, how do I put it? Tell these receptors, okay, it isn't time for me to do readings and tune into locations. It's time for me to be Melissa. I would like to watch TV or have my glass of wine or whatever it may be. So it's almost like you have to lay down the law with these receptors, with these abilities. It's time to tone it down. Now isn't the time. So now I can turn it on pretty quickly though. A lot of times mediums, you take time and you get into this meditative state and open up your chakras or whatever the process may be, whatever the process is for that medium. And I do actually take time to do that a few minutes before. Why not just, heighten things a little bit, do everything I can. But at the same time, sometimes it doesn't have to be that way. I could be in the midst of running errands and then come home and somebody wants a reading and it's like quickly, okay, turn that light switch on. It's time to give somebody a psychic or mediumship reading. So you learn with time, to turn it on and to, like I said, turn it off or it's more so about toning it down. Now isn't the time, because I found that walking around open all the time, everything's just, blazing. I mean, you're just tuning into absolutely everything around you. Going to the supermarket can be difficult because you're just tuning into so much information around you from the people around you. And it could be downright upsetting. So it definitely was a process to tell these abilities, these receptors, now isn't the time. So it took experience, but I feel like I'm in that place where I'm not walking around, tuning into everyone's loved ones when I go to the store, because that would be downright overwhelming.
Yeah, that'd be exhausting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's the other thing too. So here's what I get from that. For me, like a lot of competitors, whether it be pool or basketball, or they have that same thing where they have to turn it off when they go home, or it'll keep them up all night. Or like for me, when I want to be competitive in pool, it's almost like a meditative state. I'm getting my mindset right. I'm going to go in there, and it's a mental game. When I go home on a bad night or a good night, I tend to reflect on it too much. I have to turn it off, read a book, or watch TV to get it out of my head. It's almost like the same thing. Now, here's the scary thing. I was thinking about this. I have a theory on the little gray aliens. I think they're an advanced robotic machine with a downloaded consciousness, right? A biological machine. And then the actual biological ones, which I think people speak is about the taller ones, they stay clear of us. I think they're in the process of a hybrid program, right? Because if we go to another planet and we find it, there's life there, there's an atmosphere, we can't breathe air, we're not going to be able to have a hybrid program that works inside of a generation. That's millennia. It takes a long time to make that work. That being said, I wonder if alien life would avoid you, because they speak it. I'm not going to call it telepathic. I think they have it like what we have. We're approaching Neuralink, right? We're going to be able to communicate with just knowing. I wonder if perhaps they would avoid you because you have that receptor. Like, well, we can't get near her. She'll know what the agenda is. Does that sound right?
It very well could be. It very well could be. And it's interesting because I honestly do not know if I can connect with other worldly beings. I may have that ability. And it's funny because Rick and I have been discussing this so much about, me possibly trying to learn how to tap into that. What would that require? Do you need a more heightened state? So you very well could be right about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I know people connect with all sorts of various beings, beings from other realms, the fairy folk, or whatever it may be. So, and I do feel that it's definitely possible. Maybe it's what you focus on. I do feel you can choose to learn how to do this sort of thing. And I also feel that it could be from your own experiences. I'm sure there are plenty of mediums out there that have connected with alien, life, otherworldly beings, whatever.
They were able to turn into that level, that
frequency,
that, maybe through some portal, but also too, I mean, people that have been under hypnosis. If you want, you can call them experiencers or abductees, whatever you prefer.
Right.
And it's said many times that when, a lot of these people have very similar stories, and sometimes there's a lot of fear in these things, and they're saying like they're laying on this cold, like what feels like a metal table, and there's like 3 extraterrestrials around them, and they're saying they were talking to me, but their lips weren't moving, that they're a lot of times claiming that they were being communicated to telepathically. And so a lot of people asking, okay, well, why are they doing these abductions, these experiments and things? Well, a lot of experts in the field of ufology feel, and I kind of believe this myself, is that, they see things about our planet that they like, about people, here on Earth. Some, I don't believe, there's no way that I believe that every alien species is going to shake your hand and pat you on the back. I believe that there's some that probably have evil agendas and some don't, just like people here on Earth have evil agendas and some don't. So that is a logical thing right there. But when you think about when they're extracting things, what are they extracting? Why are they extracting our DNA? And some feel that the reason why is that they're taking our DNA from these abductees and mixing it in with the DNA from their own alien species to create what is called and known as a hybrid.
Right. So here, real quick to that, we have Neuralink coming real soon, right? Near future. And eventually, as discussed or what I read and heard, we'll be able to communicate with just a knowing. Now, bear in mind, what the ability Melissa has is she has a different kind of software, and she uses different receptors. We all have, I personally believe everyone has this ability in her head. We just don't utilize that part of it. She's utilizing it.
Or it's not developed. Yeah.
Right, or undeveloped, right. So now you're talking about a sophisticated species that has their own Neuralink, where they're not only using their subconscious, but their regular, it's connected. And so they're using a larger capacity simultaneously, which enables them to speak not telepathically, but with a sophisticated technology that allows receptors in the brain to do exactly what Neuralink's geared to do, right? And that being said, I think, because I hear from a lot of psychics, I don't know that I've ever heard any psychic tell me that they've communicated with aliens, right? Or like, as they would like the deceased of humans anyhow. I think if I'm a sophisticated life form and I go to this planet, and like we were talking about, to do a hybrid program does not happen in one lifetime. This is millennia. I don't care how sophisticated your technology is. It takes a very long time to make that a successful project. That being said, we're to study.
There was a story one time that Art told me on Skype back in 2015 before he died, that basically Bob Bigelow, he actually lives outside, Art lives outside Area 51, and basically Bob actually has Bigelow Aerospace, and there's actually rumors that he actually has inside his company actual alien spacecrafts. Now, I don't know if this is a true story or not, but that's what Art told me one time, that he had the opportunity to interview Bob Bigelow and talk to him about this on Coast to Coast AM in the early 2000s.
I'll tell you what, I can't confirm or deny it. I mean, I don't know, but I can tell you Bigelow shut down the Skinwalker Ranch. Now, for someone as vested and interested in the subject as he is, for him to shut down, maybe he found what he needed and he's moved on. All right? I mean,
that's very possible too.
Yeah, think about it. Like, well, why would you shut that down? Look, it's not a money loss. There's this other guy owns it. He's got TV shows go over there. You know what I mean? It's a money maker. If nothing more, even if there's nothing real there, that property makes money because of the folklore. Now,
well, there's been people too that have been at certain government sites, for like the Air Force and certain hidden locations, that have actually claimed that they've seen extraterrestrial beings, like, really sick and look like they were undernourished and maybe like dying or whatever, because they were being experimented on like crazy. So, but again, I mean, you're not going to hear that from the government. Why?
Well, no.
Because what are they good at doing? They're good at hiding a lot of the truth. And it's only now, I mean, it's gotten to a point where there's so much stuff out there that they have to go, wait a minute, man, we got these leaks, we got these pilots making claims, this and that. I mean, it's just a matter of time, and people are already starting to believe this stuff. How much longer are we going to keep this stuff brushed under the rug?
The answer is this: it's not going to be much longer, because private industry is going to space now. It's the billionaire space race. Who's going to get there first? Who's going to go to that planet? And trust me, when I say this a lot, but when Jeff Bezos is in space and he records a UFO or aliens, that shit's viral tomorrow. That's not suppressed. And what are they going to bribe him with money? That's not going to work.
And also I wanted to say in 2018, my mentors actually went inside Art's studio and they interviewed John Lear. John Lear was a CIA contract provider who actually reported seeing, he actually has 30,000 hours of flight experience, flight instructor, ground instructor. He died in early March, and he reports seeing all kinds of various kinds of alien spacecrafts and stuff flying in the sky. And basically, over the years, working with the CIA back in the 70s, he was just a fascinating man, and he was one of Art's first guests, and basically told Art so much stories of being in the air and seeing cigar-shaped Tic Tac UFOs. I mean, everything you could possibly think of, with multicolored lights and different kind of flight patterns. So it's definitely out there, and
that was going back to the 1940s.
It goes way. Listen, all the research I've been doing, and I'm sure Joshua has done it too. This phenomena goes back to, it predates humanity. It predates religion.
Exactly. It goes back like 20,000 years.
So here's why. And here's what I think. Because if they were going to have a hybrid program, wouldn't start right away. They would have to go to the drawing board. NASA doesn't launch a program to space. It takes, look at James Webb. That's what, 2 decades in the making? 2 decades. So let's advance it a little bit. You come across this planet, it's got atmosphere, there's life there. You're going to observe it for a long period of time. Here, a good example, I said this on a podcast before. if we're walking in a park and we get compared to ants all the time, they're like, why would they bother us? We're ants. Well, I'll tell you why. If you're walking in the park, you see ants and they're driving cars, flying planes, they're having wars. There's a social dynamic to them. We're shutting the park down. We're going to watch that ant pile forever and watch how they evolve. That's just plain and simple, you know?
That's right. Yeah.
So
experiment.
Yeah, it's hard for I can't stand when people are like, well, they wouldn't even acknowledge us. We're beneath them, but we're interesting. Oh, we are very interesting. We'd be if nothing more, the very minimum, we're the best channel to watch. You get it all here on Earth, right? You know?
Yeah, it's like one of the Twilight Zones where, these astronauts like crash and all that, and this guy is, I think everybody on the spaceship didn't make it except for him,
right?
And then all of a sudden, they put him in this room and they're giving him all this food and everything and being so warm and welcoming. And all of a sudden, there's like no windows. He can't see, like, why is there no windows? And all of a sudden, this wall opens up. And then, in the Twilight Zone thing, and then you see a sign, there's like this cage that's around him. And then it shows you this sign about, like basically saying, a human kept in captivity,
Right. Yeah.
And so when he thought that, wow, these people are so nice, they take me into their home. It wasn't even really a home. They made it look like a home until they dropped the wall down. The guy's actually in a cage to be observed by another species that wasn't even human.
Keep in mind, Rick, Joshua, Melissa, keep this in mind. Everyone in this conversation right now on this podcast whether you be someone who'd seen something or like me who has seen nothing, we all have one thing in common. We have an open mind. We approach everything with no filters on so we can learn more. That doesn't mean the entire planet's that way. I know people personally, and I've seen people that are like this as well, where they believe that there's us and there's only us, God made here, and there's nothing else. And so why does the government have to somewhat keep a little bit of keep it quiet anyway? They have to spoon feed it, because if tomorrow you said there was alien life, people are going to lose their shit.
Yeah,
right?
That's the thing. They don't want to invoke fear in the general public, but they've come to a time where then say, hey, you know what, man? I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are pretty smart. And now that we got, airline pilots, astronauts, astronomers, I mean, you get these people that, a lot of these people with PhD degrees. I mean, I've been to conferences where, these are college professors, these are astronauts, these are doctors, people very well educated. And if they're believing this stuff, I mean, you come to the conclusion that, hey, there's something there. Now, that doesn't mean we don't go out as investigators and say, yep, that's definitely a UFO. Yep, that's definitely an alien. No, we do proper investigation.
Yeah,
get
but
the facts and come up with
the flip side is, and it's scary to say this too. This is a fact, and it's scary to say it. There are people on the planet that don't kill other people because they don't want to go to hell, not because it's wrong, because they're afraid. They're afraid of the outcome. It's the two things: law enforcement and God. You fear both. You don't want to go to prison. You don't want to go to hell. Unfortunately, if you need to read scripture to know not to kill somebody, you should be taken out, man. You're thin the herd. There's a problem there, right? If you needed the words of a book to tell you harming another human is not right, something's wrong, period. And
exactly,
there's a lot of people on this planet that if you told them God wasn't real, they'd probably kill the neighbor. They cheated. They leave their wife. And if you told people that there's life outside of this planet, according to their religious belief, they'll come unglued. And there's a lot of countries. I'm not talking about America just by itself. There are countries where...
I mean, there's people that, you put the facts in their face. Like, let's say you go down to a local beach, maybe where you live, maybe you're out on the West Coast and, there's the ocean there. And all of a sudden, you go, oh, wow, man, do I see Jesus? And all of a sudden they go, well, that must be Jesus because I saw him just walk across the water and he didn't fall in, so you show somebody and you go, hey, look, that's Jesus. He's walking across water. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's probably really not Jesus. I don't know. Maybe that must have been photoshopped. or it must be like some kind of like bird or something that looks like Jesus, you know.
Well,
Come
that's the nature of people, unfortunately, right? Because if an alien was on national TV tomorrow, look, we're real. There's still going to be people at home like, nope, that's a devil. That is Satan.
That's just an alien suit. I saw the same one in the Halloween shop last year.
Yeah, some people are just fixing their train of thought, man. So why do they spoon feed slowly? I don't think they have a choice, because people outnumber the government significantly. And if tomorrow you told people, hey, well, do what you want, there's no fear, there's no hell, forget it.
Well, I just saw a news feed that was sent to me today on my cell phone that they're having a House committee meeting, or it's a government hearing about extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
And it's going to be live on YouTube. I can't remember the date off the top of my head, because unfortunately I don't have the ability to memorize dates like our wonderful director Joshua does. But I will tell you, it's going to be actually it's later this month, and it's going to be live on YouTube, and the government is going to have these public hearings. I mean, that says a lot right there to me. Like, you know what? And I think what you're saying, spoon feed, well, I think the spoon is getting bigger.
Well, it has to. Again, not to repeat this, but private industry is going to space like crazy now. They're experimenting all over the place. And they're not doing it to find aliens. They're doing it because they want to be the first. That's everything with mankind. I want to build the biggest building. Okay. Well, Elon's got his own space program. It's going to Mars. Well, I want to go to Pluto. That's just how we work. So,
I mean, there's stuff like I've heard that a lot of people don't know about. Like, I mean, they're talking about building modules in orbit. Okay. And that these people will be trained to build these modules that are going to be for people to live on planet Mars. But they don't put everything out there on the news and say they're doing this. I just happen to know firsthand about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's been discussed a lot in the past, believe it or not. They're even like the idea of the moon being a proving ground. It's easier to launch space missions from the moon. There's less resistance, takes less fuel and less resources. So
that's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, if we built a station on the moon and we launched our space programs, satellites and everything from there, the only thing that stops it, what makes space travel expensive, is leaving our atmosphere. It takes a lot of power to get off our planet, both gravity and. But if you're leaving the moon, it's you could sneeze and float away.
Well, yeah, but you know what they're working on now, which is a real big thing. There's researchers working on this right now, is on the ability to travel on a time warp, where it warps the time. I've seen a website. They even got graphs out and everything, man. They're already working on this stuff right now, to where they could travel, let's say now when it takes almost a year to get from Earth to Mars.
Right.
I can't remember, it was
6
10
months.
or 12 months.
6 months
Yeah.
time. Right.
6 months. Okay. Half a year. So, imagine if they can just do that in literally within a few hours or a day, because they warp the time.
I don't think it's a question is if it could happen. I think it's more.
It's when it's going to happen.
Well, no. It's not a question of if it could happen. It's a question of, can we handle it? Can our physiology take that? I think that's the biggest question.
Oh, right. I get you. Yeah. From a physical point of view, I agree, because that implies incredible G forces, and the human body can only accept so many G forces. I mean, that's why these astronauts.
Yeah, but not even that. Like, now you're talking about manipulating space time. Our physiology applies. We abide by a certain kind of rules. If you go through that wormhole, what happens to our physiology? Like, what happens to our DNA, our brain, and our consciousness?
Yeah, it would probably destroy our bodies, and it could be that these extraterrestrials, their bodies are made to travel on these time warps, where our bodies is not made like that. Right.
And that's why I kind of think the smaller grays are a biological machine with the consciousness upload, because none of that would apply to it at that point. Melissa, with astral projection, right? When you're leaving your body, is it, when you do this, does it feel like space and time have altered? Like, are you in this? So if you go observe something across the planet, is it in the same timeline, or is it possible that you're manipulating time as well?
Well, to me, now I've studied the basics of remote viewing, and I don't really feel like I'm necessarily altering time. I do feel like we are in the same time. Now, what I'm able to do is, before we investigate a location, I do feel like I can project myself to that location and start tuning into information. Now, of course, the Selma Mansion, for example, that was the very first location that I investigated with Phantom Detectives. And it's funny because I can do it, and it isn't necessarily intentional. Like, I don't say to myself, okay, I'm going to project myself. It's just kind of like, I'm just kind of randomly tuning into that. I may see a picture of it, and just randomly, I'm just tuning into that location, and I'm picking up information from, the residents from maybe like the 1800s.
Right.
I don't necessarily feel like our time is altered. I feel like I'm still living in the same, I'm in the same time. I'm in this time, and just tuning into information from that particular time period. So maybe it's a little bit different for everybody and their experience with that sort of thing. But for me, I feel like it's the same time, and I just happen to be tuning into information from a different time period. So that's where I am as far as my level of expertise, if you will.
Right. For you, so let me ask you, all right, so an example, when I want to relax at night, because I had a long day, and if you leave it to me, if right now Rick shows me a picture of something intriguing, I'll be up all night. If Joshua gives me a history lesson on something I didn't otherwise know, I would overdo it. I'd be up all night reading it. For me to tune out by the end of the night, I usually put on music at 432 hertz, right? It's a relaxing frequency, and I tune everything out. For you, when you're getting prepared for either a psychic reading, or you want to perhaps go remote view, is it wise to use a certain frequency versus other ones?
I definitely feel like, yes, you are using certain frequencies. What has been explained to me when I first started, studying mediumship, especially, is when we learn how to get into that altered state, whether, we begin by doing a meditation and opening our chakras, or whatever the process is for that particular medium, what you're trying to do is you're trying to increase your frequency, if you will. You have to increase your frequency in order to connect with other, spirits, to receive information from them. So they actually have to lower their frequency or vibrations. The word that I was looking for is vibrations. I think it's all in the same realm of things. So you're trying to meet each other halfway. So you have to increase your frequency in order to connect with them, and they have to lower theirs in order to connect with you. Because from what I understand, spirits vibrate at a much higher frequency than we do. Right. So that is what you're trying to do. And for some people, it comes pretty naturally. Like I had mentioned, I'm to the point now, and maybe it has come with time and experience, where I don't necessarily need to sit in meditation in order to achieve that state. Sometimes I will, but again, I can just connect pretty quickly.
Well, it's because you probably trained your brain to hit that frequency, to hit that vibration, right? Yeah. It's memory muscle, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yes, because just like with anything else, the more that you hone your craft, the better you become. And it even happens in this realm of things. So, yes, yes, people do have natural abilities, with tuning into spirits, why they would consider themselves mediums to begin with. But when you study under teachers and mentors, and they, show you how you can increase your vibration in order to receive more information, it's that's certainly helpful too. So like you said, time and experience, you become better with time, even going into locations to investigate, like Joshua said, with each location, I feel I definitely have gotten better. So, and even that in itself was interesting because prior to joining Phantom Detectives, that isn't something that I ever took the time to do. I never would take the time to go into historic places and see what I was tuning into. So it's interesting to be able to have that ability, but I know it is in the same realm of things. And as far as like what you initially asked about projecting ourselves to these locations, the one thing that I heard it's profound is that energy is not limited by time or space.
Right.
So I know if I go and tune into one of these historic mansions that we, are going to investigate and start tuning in to information, whether I'm here or whether I'm there, to a point, it doesn't make a difference. Now, of course, if I'm in that location, the energy, I'm sure, is stronger and I'll be able to, to pick up so much more. But what was pretty fascinating was tuning into the Selma Mansion, like I said, our very first investigation. And 2 weeks prior to us investigating there, I said to Joshua, because I knew nothing about the place, I have to go in there with a blank slate. I'm to know nothing about the history because we want this to be as authentic as possible.
Right.
And I remember saying to Joshua, I said, I'm getting visions of a man who looks like Abraham Lincoln. I said, maybe it was just a resident who looked like him. He had that look. And Joshua said, no, you're onto something. You're correct. And I said, he says, Abraham Lincoln, that you're correct in some way. I said, well, what would Abraham Lincoln have to do with the Selma Mansion in Norristown, PA? And Joshua said, well, his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, her grandfather owned that mansion. And my jaw hit the floor. So
yeah, and keep in mind in that era, if Abe Lincoln looked like Abe Lincoln, like today, like, oh wow, look what Abe's wearing, man, I got to wear that same thing. That's right. How we are. It was the hot look of that era.
Yep, exactly. So that's why I was wondering, is this just a gentleman that happens to have that look? But when I said Abe Lincoln, that's when Joshua says, no, you're correct. You are onto something. So again, that's my mind was blown. And that is probably, that's the time where I realized that, okay, I can do this. I can just see maybe a picture of a location and start tuning into information.
Right.
And that happened at another place we recently investigated. What was that place, Joshua? The White Chimneys. That's where it was in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. So same thing, started tuning into a lot of the history, the dates. There was something significant about 1776. It was not the Declaration of Independence. I was just getting bombarded with all kinds of things. And then Joshua was able to verify that later. So yes, it's pretty fascinating, what you can do with these abilities.
I agree. I mean, I want
to say
again,
a little about the White Chimneys investigation. I wanted to say we captured a lot of evidence on that investigation. First thing was our former members' final investigation with us, and that night that we were there was a week before Christmas. The White Chimneys investigation, actually, the Slaymaker family actually created that place. It's called the Slaymaker Locke family, and also they actually used to host George Washington, also Marquis de Lafayette actually came there. Basically Ben Franklin visited there. This was the place that if you were on the way to Lancaster, you would visit, right outside of, or you would visit Valley Forge. You'd be on your way there. And that night we did the investigation. It's with my sister's friend. Actually, Jessica owns the basically White Chimneys at the wedding venue. And we were there and basically we did a lot of evidence. And what was interesting was I was down the basement area while at the time Rick was running the Ghost Box, and Rick actually used something called the S box from Ghost Stop and captured a ton of different kinds of things, scanning the AM and FM radio stations. And Rick can elaborate on that in a second. And when I was downstairs with the kids asking questions in my voice recorder, we heard like this loud metal, like a coin flew across the basement floor, and we were looking around to see if I said any of the kids having a coin, and they're like, no, we don't have nothing in our pockets. And we all of a sudden we play it back later. It sounds like a metal shackle like hitting the floor. And I do know that there was at one time it was actually a plantation in its history, so it could have been like some spirits that were once there that were trying to let us know of their presence, hitting them, the metal of their shackles. That's very possible. And Rick actually captured a ton of stuff on his ghost box that night.
Yeah, we also had that one, some spirit or something that, remember it was like cold and dungy down there. It was like the dungeon. Didn't pick up something. The spirit didn't want us there. It wanted us out of there, out of the room immediately. And then we kind of like took off and left. And then we were told about this area where like you could smell somebody smoking cherry pipe tobacco.
Yeah.
Right. And
wait, so when you guys are investigating these places, Rick, real quick, when you're investigating these places, right?
Yeah.
The amount of equipment, what's your setup like when you're setting up there? So people understand that. It's not just they show up and they have a good time. There's work involved with this.
There is.
Oh, there's a lot of work.
Depending on the venue, like how big it is. Like we go into smaller investigation, like let's say like somebody's apartment. Okay. We're not going to come in and set up, 4 or 5 cameras throughout the whole place. Because it's, let's say there's only like 2 rooms, like the one we did in Philly, Pennsylvania. There's only, the guy's room that he slept in, and there's the kitchen, and there's the bathroom and living room. This is a small little place. So we'll sometimes come in with more limited equipment, or if our last investigation, which was Crybaby Bridge, which is also known as Van Sant Bridge in Pennsylvania, that one, there's some things that we decided we're not going to bring. Like we're not going to be setting up. It's dark outside and all that, and we brought some paranormal devices like the REM pod and some other type of things, our digital recorders and the thermal camera and all that. But we're not going to go out and set up a DVR in the cameras in that kind of a venue. It's not that far to walk from one end of the bridge to the other end of the bridge. But we brought, certain pieces of equipment, and, again, some pieces of equipment, we didn't get any response at all. And then other times like, oh, wow, the REM pod's going off, but not these other little devices that you think they were, because they're going to pick and choose what they want. There's some devices that have been very almost like the dowsing rods have never failed us. We've always got a response to the dowsing rods on every single investigation I've been on. Now, I will say, with that being said, they are a little bit more, sometimes people using dowsing rods, it'll be a little more effective with some people than they will to other people. And I think because maybe they're more sensitive, most of them might be able to explain that better than me.
Yeah, because I would imagine, right, Melissa, that the dowsing rods would be an extension of your already capable receptors, right?
Yes. But what's interesting is what I found is now I'm a pretty small woman, so I may truly not have a whole lot of energy to draw from. So there have been times that I've tried to use the dowsing rods and they just will not move for me. I will get no response, or it will take a significant amount of time to get any kind of response, where somebody like Rick, I mean, they'll move very, very quickly. So sometimes it's just what they have to draw from. I mean, maybe I don't have a whole lot to draw from, where, a bigger guy has much more. So I tend to not work with the dowsing rods. I'm like, Rick, you get the responses, Yeah. So, but what was interesting about Crybaby Bridge? Now, we film our investigations, and we will have a set time to film. Like for instance, a session with the dowsing rods, or Phantom time, where we do EVP sessions. So, what I remember is I was filming Rick, using the dowsing rods, asking questions, and we had pieces of equipment at the other end of the bridge. And what was difficult for me was I'm trying to film Rick, getting these accurate responses with the dowsing rods, and at the same time, our equipment was going off at the other end of the bridge. So I kind of wanted to capture that as well. So it was interesting getting responses with the dowsing rods and with our equipment at the same time. And that equipment would not go off only when we were asking questions. So that I thought was interesting, as.
Yeah. And what's crazy too, Melissa, is that sometimes during an investigation, they'll set off more than one piece of equipment at a time. So like they did in that kid's room that we investigated in Pennsylvania. And all of a sudden these little colored balls go off, and then the teddy bears go off.
Mm-hmm. And let me say the Selma Mansion also in the toy room. When you guys were upstairs, I was sitting down because I was just kind of taking it easy. I got my vaccine, so I was just kind of sitting and watching Man in the DVR. And you guys were getting upstairs responses, basically. The electroscope was going off, the REM pods were going off, the EMF detectors, the millimeter was going off, everything all at one time. And that was the most active room of the Selma Mansion. And unfortunately, the person that was running the mansion, unfortunately, just passed away. But he let us in for the entire night that night, and we got a lot of different things happen from the top to the bottom. That place was packed to the rafters, haunted, and the Crybaby Bridge was also haunted. We also captured an EVP on that investigation during the Crybaby Bridge, and we also got REM pod responses. I mean, everything. Medusa was going off that night too, so we got so many different devices. And every place we go to, there's like different devices that we bring. And sometimes, for example, like we would sometimes even bring the Obulus, which is basically it just picks up EMF fields, and all of a sudden Melissa's readings will match the words on the Obulus, or her spirit app, basically, which is similar to the Obulus. That sometimes her readings will also match that, and sometimes the Obulus and the spirit app will match the words simultaneously, which is pretty amazing.
Yes. Absolutely. Yep, because that way we have more than one thing to verify what we're picking up. And, whether it's what I'm tuning into, that can be verified with our equipment. So it, to me, it makes it that much more valid. And I always ask the question, if a piece of equipment is going off, I always like to make sure it isn't feeding off of something. Is there electrical lines? Is there something nearby? So I always try to rule that out. And same thing at the time when we were in the Sanderson Museum, and all of our personal belongings were like, it was like something was trying to barricade us up there. And I thought to myself, I was asking, I said, are you sure that somebody did not come off the street and play a joke on us? Are you sure this place is locked up tight? I really try to rule out every, explanation as to why something is happening. And I remember at the time, all of us were on the second floor. None of us were downstairs to have, to have been able to move all of our belongings on those steps. So I always try to, I'm not necessarily skeptical, but I try to always rule out something. Let's make sure that this is accurate. So, that is something that I do as well during.
Because think about it too, Melissa, because if somebody comes in that place and it's an intruder, more than likely, it's going to be someone that's looking for something to steal.
Exactly.
Because why are you going to trespass into a property that you don't belong in? Let's see what these people are doing. It's not, nobody's going to go like, okay, well, maybe we should go step in and drop off, some cupcakes or something. No, that's not going to happen. Right. It's more like if somebody comes in there, it's either somebody who owns a property, or one of us, which wasn't one of us, or an intruder. Well, intruder comes in, we would have had missing paranormal equipment. They would have stole that fast. Or there would have been some of these old relics in there, these old antiques that are probably worth a lot of money that they would have just stole right out of the mansion. And one of us would have heard some kind of activity going on, which we did.
First thing you should look for always is the copper wiring still in the house. All right? Because that if that's there, good chance no one's going there to break in, right? You got a good team. You got a strong team, you guys.
And what's interesting is we also capture stuff using the Sls Camera, stands for Structure Light Sensor. We're only one of the few teams in the world with one of the original digital dowsing SLS cameras. I actually got it in 2018 from a friend of Dave Schrader's from the Holzer files. It's actually like there's only 20 known to exist, and we actually got one of those. Now, the SLS camera has been used by Zach Bagans and others. Now, the key is you got to make sure what it does is when it aimed against the wall, you don't want to make sure it doesn't have like a water bottle or like a chandelier hanging from a wall, because it can create a false mapping. But when you can
photographs,
aim it, or photographs, yes, or aim it against a solid wall, you're going to get something pretty strong and convincing. What it does is it writes the word anomaly and maps it like a stick figure. And Rick, I just gave him the old, basically the other SLS camera that we have 2 of them on our team. So we can now dual wield and run SLS cameras. So we got 2 of them on our team, which is pretty rare and awesome because we can one person can do one floor, another can map on another floor. So there's gonna be a lot of possibilities as we, going forward, as we do, use the SLS camera. And that's usually after Phantom time, that's the last part of our investigation. Then we pack up for the night.
Yeah, and it's crazy, and like Josh was saying too, you got to be careful with false mapping. I mean, because when you see this thing work in action, this SLS camera, you hold it directly so the camera's aiming at a person. You're going to see how it'll map that human form into a stick figure. However, what's said is that if you put that on a blank wall, which, like Josh was saying, there's nothing there, no table lamps, no pictures, no water bottles, no objects that could be mapped as a stick figure, then hey, wait a minute, man, I'm holding this thing on a brick wall and I'm seeing a stick form of a person, but there's no one there. There's a very, very good chance that is some type of spiritual being that is standing in that area.
Before we close out, so we're approaching that mark. The team, you got a good team. I've seen it before. You got Josh, he's very invested, and he's got a great knowledge of just the historical part of it all. He's got a lot of overall knowledge. You have Melissa, who's a psychic, but also she allows logic to prevail. She has a great ruling out system, right? Process of elimination. And then you got Rick, who's been properly trained for ufology all around. You guys sound to me, sounds like a TV show, like the best TV show you could watch for reality purposes, right?
And you know what? It's funny you mention that because, we already feel in our hearts that, A&E or arts and entertainment, if you're watching this stuff, man, I mean, listening to this, the 3 of us would make a great team for any paranormal show because, number one, I mean, we're going to keep everything real. None of us would ever go into reality show and lie and say something, just try to push me down the stairs unless it really happened. Right. I won't do it. Joshua won't do it. Melissa won't do it because that would be fake. Now, if we did feel something slap us on the back, maybe, we feel a level of pain. We might play up that level of pain, but we're going to be, like, oh man, it really hurt. We'll let you know how bad it hurt.
In all honesty, if something touches you at all, you're going to have a chemical response. You're going to be excited, right? You're going to dump adrenaline. You're going to have a reaction. Period. Even if it's something as minor as just on your back, right? It's a little tap. You're going to have a reaction.
What we won't do is we won't lie for the sake of boosting ratings or compromise.
Yeah, I get it. For me, especially, you guys are going to learn this as I visit you guys. I might be a hazard for one of these shows because if I see something, I'm going to run at it because it's not good enough for me to document it for all viewers listening or whoever watches. It's, I really want to give you something good to see, but at the end of the day, I want to know and I'm going to run at it. And I'm probably I'm the guy that dies in the movie right out of the gate. Said this a lot.
Well, we're pretty much like that anyway, because the 3 of us, honestly, we're pretty much fearless, except now, naturally, if we did feel something like scratch us across the face, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm like, wait a minute, man, something just scratched me across the face and my face is bleeding. I'm going to probably bail out of that house. I'm not going to stick around. And if there's something, an evil presence, because you do have also demonic activity that can enter the businesses and homes as well.
Right.
If there's something demonic there, and something scratched me across the face, man, I'm not sticking around.
Yeah, their intentions are definitely going to be negative ones. I'm going to talk to you guys in post. We're going to say goodnight to the audience. We got Melissa, Rick, Joshua, everyone listening. I'm going to talk to them in post. Everything for their shows, their channels, anything that they want will be documented in description, so anyone can find it with ease. And I thank you guys very much.
Man, I really thank you so much, Adam, for having us.
Yes, thank you.
On board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was a great opportunity to be on your podcast, man.
Thank you for being on. I appreciate it. I'm going to talk to them. Everyone else, good night or good day.